Hi again. I am so happy you're here with us in episode 4. It's a delicate one this week where we discuss betrayal and also how to heal not only the mind but the body after experiencing traumatic events like this. Welcome to the Connection podcast. I am Lauren Dry, also known as the Connection Catalyst, founder of a coaching program called Rise into Regulation, focused on helping modern women and couples have it all at home by rewiring their old and new patterns for safe and successful connection, even after years of chaos and even if only one person is doing the work. On my podcast, I'll share all of the real and raw moments in my own marriage, from tough breakdown to the relief of the breakthrough, and share with you the science, simplicity, and soul that brought us and so many other couples into connection and contentment too, so that you can discover and use the tools that you need to have a home that's filled with calm, contentment, and play, because we all deserve a blueprint for finally having it all at home. I know this is going to be a big one this week, so before we dive in, I want to invite you to take a deep breath, shake it out, make a cup of tea, make sure you know that this is a safe place, and we are going to not only cover the logistics involved of what happens after a betrayal event, but also how to come back from it and the practicality of what's involved for that to be possible in a way that doesn't involve betraying your own self moving forward, whether you've been on the giving or the receiving end of betrayal. Now, personally, my first experience with betrayal was a tough one. And I have to say, hand on heart, it was decades before I had a handle on the full ramifications of what that had done, not only to my sense of safety in relationships and not just romantic relationships, but my sense of self and how I moved through the world. Now, my first experience with betrayal, funnily enough, didn't have to do with a romantic partner, although there was one involved in the betrayal kind of event that took place. It was, though, with a deep, close relationship that had been involved in the betrayal that left my world feeling like it was different afterwards, different than I'd had before. Now, I'd like to explain something about categorization and safety in the mind before we go a little bit deeper into untangling betrayal puzzles. This long-term friendship that was involved in the betrayal was someone who unconsciously I had put into a box of security. Now, what I'd never identified prior to this event was that this box of security that had been created in my mind had a specific set of rules that existed. For anyone in this box, yeah, there could be conflict, there could be disagreements, we could drift in and out of friendship, and that was a natural part of life. But within this set of rules existed a safety barrier in my psyche. This person is someone, if they're in this box, who, no matter how bad things get, does not have the capacity, the tools, or the will involved to ever actively cause pain or betrayal on any real functional level in my life. There may be pain or disruption or distance or confusion, but no one in this category, in this box that I created, was in a sense dangerous to me. Now, for this example of betrayal that I'd experienced, during the course of our friendship, what had happened was that I'd been given information about an infidelity event that had occurred. And so I chose at that time not to confront the friend that I'd been told was involved, but to confront the romantic person I'd been seeing at the time. And because of the nature of the friendship, I was actually looking forward to confronting the romantic person that I'd been seeing about their bad behavior, kind of closing the door on that relationship, accepting that bad things happen, and then moving on. So deep was my faith in the category of people within this box of trust I'd created in my mind that it never even occurred to me that the other person could be willingly involved in what I'd heard about there being infidelity with the person I had been seeing. And so when I had this final conversation with the person that I'd already decided I didn't want to be involved with anymore, and that was that, I discovered without a shadow of a doubt that I'd been mistaken. And it was actually the friend whose involvement was not only willing, but had been initiated. It was a choice, an active choice for this to take place. And something very unexpected happened in my internal environment. At the time that I heard this news, I kind of experienced this really surreal physical response. I'd heard and felt what sounded and felt deeply like a loud crack. And although I'd heard about the ground shifting when you experience a big traumatic life event, I hadn't understood until that moment that it wasn't necessarily that the ground shifts, but the world as you know it, that secure container in which trusted bonds with others can exist within yourself, cracks in this visceral, tangible, almost visible experience. And then it almost at the same time pops back together, but wrong. Imagine a puzzle piece or a colored, artistically decorated pane of glass that is intentionally and forcibly cracked right down the middle. But then it is placed back together and bonded in place, but with the art piece that used to be cohesive, let's say a painting of a person with their eyes next to each other, buttons lining up, half of a leaf matching the other side. It's placed back together very clearly wrong. And you can see the edge where the break took place. The eyes don't match anymore. Half of the leaf sits higher than the other, and the smooth edges jar away from each other in a way that creates this sense of wrongness every time you look back at it. Now, all of this happened within a split second, but my body had experienced this very physical, tangible change. It integrated a new experience, and that experience was people aren't safe. Not even the people who you use as a foundation for your sense of safety and your sense of security in relationships. Now, with time and due to the details involved, I worked through forgiveness of everyone involved, whether they stayed in my life or not. And I chose to put behind me what happened, as I didn't want to be kind of defined by such a negative event. I wanted to feel that full-bodied peace and rest and rejuvenation again and move on and, you know, have that sense of safety within myself and my body again. But what I missed in the healing process, even after having therapy, even after spending years and years digesting what had happened and being on the receiving end of some really heartfelt and deep and regretful apologies with a lot of, you know, reasoning given to me that made sense. I missed the largest piece of the healing puzzle, which was not to reconcile the event and the details of what happened and the motivations of those involved, and even my own role in the situation itself. It was the deep, gaping, jarring hole within the relationship that had been broken within myself. The wound that, in order to protect me from further harm, had told me now people are unsafe. No matter how well behaved you are, how hypervigilant you are, how careful or loving or observant you are, people are unsafe. I was now unsafe in any relationship, anywhere. And the relationship that had been so deeply damaged in my life, funnily enough, was not a relationship with anyone outside of myself, but my own relationship to my internal self as a whole. I had let myself down. I had made myself vulnerable. I'd been naive. I hadn't been paying attention. I'd been gullible. I wasn't worthy of loyalty, care, or compassion. And worst of all, my box of security didn't work. I couldn't count on anyone, no matter how much evidence I had that they were trustworthy. Anyone. Because anyone at all could let you down. Even though on the outside I projected the complete opposite to this, confident, self-assured, outgoing, my body had kept the score. And I brought that into my marriage. How could we ever find trust within each other on a foundation that had a very explicit and base level rule to prevent that deep level of pain from ever happening again? Trust no one. Don't get me wrong, I'd said the vows and I meant them. I told my husband I trusted him explicitly, and on a conscious level, I believed it. But my body wasn't communicating with the mind. The mind believed and had evidence that most things were well, but the body kept the score and was living in a state of scanning for danger and emotionally keeping up just one wall to be able to stay safe and never experience that kind of heartache again. Perhaps even choosing a relationship that, at the time, fulfilled my deep body nervous system need to not let that last wall down, to keep just a bit of distance in absolutely all things, to keep that level of trust just ever so slightly at arm's length, because the foundation was cracked. It wasn't safe. I knew what that crack of betrayal sounded like, and I would never put myself in that position again. So if you've made it this far and you've ever been down that route and any of this is resonating for you, I want to pause for a second and take a deep breath and invite you to come back to your senses. Come back into your own body again. Breathe deeply into the belly and rest. Betrayal is a wound that so many of us have experienced through life, either in our marriage, in past relationships, or even by our own selves if we've placed ourselves in situations where we've broken our own values, betrayed our own relationships, or allowed ourselves to coexist in situations where we knew we were betraying our deepest feelings and needs in the interests of maintaining a version of safety or predictability. Healing betrayal doesn't just happen by learning the right things another person has to say or what we need to hear in order to create a new and more effective relationship. Yes, those communication tools are important, and we all need is reassurance after experiencing such a deep and foundational rupture in how we understand human beings can operate. We need to understand that repairing our relationship to self is the foundation that is required to move forward. Because nobody can be harsher at preventing us from ever having safer relationships again than ourselves. Healing from betrayal on a deep, restorative and reparative level starts first with repairing and rewiring nervous system connections that have gone rogue and created a pattern around communication with any deep relationship that feeds back into the sense of self, a message of, I'm not good enough. My intuition is off. I can't trust my internal compass, or I'm not lovable. These messages may have served you to help make sense of a deeply rupturing and existentially painful experience, to help you make sense of the world again in a way that allowed you to love through it without fear. But in order to have safe relationships with other people, the answer isn't to cut out our own self from experiencing depth, vulnerability, and connection, but to repair the breach of trust that happened between the external observation about others and the internal guidance and compass that says relationships can actually be a safe place to rest. Now, you can begin to do this in 3 stages. The first stage is grief. Grief is a deeply painful process, and also it's the first step that's so important to feeling fully in order to completely and adequately close the loop on the experience and acknowledge all of those deeply painful statements about self, like, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. How could this happen to me? What does this say about me? And take those statements and hold them with love and compassion and grace, and then release them. What we resist persists. So don't be afraid of grief. Only be afraid of the joy it can prevent you from feeling if you deny it. We can begin to actively help grief move out of the body using tools like breathwork, deep unconscious mind parts integration, and somatic practices. Second, you need to rebuild the relationship with self. After you found these deep doorways and statements related to grief and allowed them to be felt fully, practice somatic tools that allow you to communicate clearly whenever you do feel distrustful, whenever you do need reassurance, whenever you do need love and softness and care, and give yourself back the safety in your body that you need to be able to communicate clearly and confidently without your body sabotaging your attempts to connect out of fear that you'll be hurt again. Being on the receiving end or experiencing betrayal of self can create deep, lasting, and painful behavioral patterns in the body that are difficult and confronting to adjust. But every old dog can learn new tricks, and I am a testament to that. Just like my clients will tell you, betrayal in any form is one of the most frightening and jarring things a person can experience. And it also can be the very thing that shakes your foundations up so much that new, often more beautiful works of art that allow deeper relationships to form, that are based on a core level of self-trust that wasn't available or wasn't possible before experiencing such a rupture, can take place. Betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can absolutely be the beginning to opening doorways to relationships that have a depth that never would have been possible without discovering how deeply you can love all parts of yourself. Thank you so much for listening and joining me here at the Connection Podcast. I'd love to hear from you about how you found this episode. You can reach me on Instagram over at the.connection.catalyst and let me know what you'd like to hear about next. It is such a joy to share this space with you, and I cannot wait to connect again soon. Big love.